Hello everybody, it's Bourbon Bill, and tonight, a very special episode. We're diving into one of the most anticipated releases from 2023, and really the conclusion of how I feel about it. That's right, it's Makers Mark Cellar Aged. The conclusion, we'll call it. So, pretty excited to do this one. Thank you, Tim Buma, for the sample of Makers Mark Cellar Aged. Tim graciously donated a sample for this review. Have not seen the bottle, have not been able to get a bottle. It hasn't dropped in PA, in case you're wondering. So, my PA viewers, sorry, it hasn't dropped here yet. Pretty hard to get a bottle. Secondary is pretty high. So let's start out with Makers Mark Cellar Aged. I did a video on it before it came out expressing my concerns. I said, look, it's 12 years old, but they aged 6 of it in a cellar, which means it didn't really age. So it's like 6 years Makers with a little extra something. But they're putting this massive age statement on there, and like, is it worth it? That was kind of my discussion in that video, and I said I'll link it above. Price on this bad boy, in case you're not familiar with it, is $150 hairs. That's the MSRP. Pretty high, considering their wood finishing series, which we'll discuss here. This was my favorite of the wood finishing, which is the BEP, which was the last one from 2023. Was like $70 hairs. Okay, 70. You more than doubled the price of your wood finishing to come out with Makers Mark Cellar Aged, and you aged the Makers Mark Cellar Aged for the same time as this in a regular warehouse, and you just threw it in the cellar for an additional 6 years, where it was too cold to really age much, and that's worth more than double this. Makers Mark Cellar Aged is 115.7 proof, compute 57.85% alcohol by volume. So a little bit hotter than the generic wood finishing. This one's 109.6, compute 54.8% alcohol by volume. So a little bit hotter. Is it worth twice the coin? That's the question. So here it is. Color, medium. It's not super dark. It's not light. Let's give it a nosing. Oh, it does smell good. It does smell good. Now, it is a blend of 11 and 12 year. Keep that in mind for the 2023 release. They are slated to release this every year, though. So if you didn't get it this year, like me, maybe you'll get it next year. Have hope. Have hope. So up front, it's all like a lot of caramel, a lot of vanilla, a lot of stone fruit, and it does have a deep, rich flavor. Scent, I should say, on the nose. Let's take a sip. Damn, that's delicious. Mouthfeel and viscosity through the roof. It's pretty thick. It's very fruity. It's very caramely. There is like a little bit of oak on the back end, but there's not a lot of oak here, right? It is very good. And just from a standpoint on its own, I think it would receive a score of like a B from Bourbon Bill, right? It's very good. Price a little high for what it is, for what it delivers. For me, a 12 year at 116, almost 116 proof, should have more oak to it. But this is very well balanced, but it's just bright fruit and like bright vanilla. Now let's compare that to the BEP. So this was the last of the wood finishing series, if you will. We'll see what they do for 2024, but this stood for barrel entry proof, and it said 10 version of toasted American oak stage. So this one's obviously finished. Wood sugars, vanilla, caramel, and sweet spice. Similar to what we got on the Makers Cellar Aged, really. Let's give it a nosing. So on the nose, it's not as deep and rich, right? It's just, this is very like vanilla woody. Very woody and vanilla, and the caramel's there, but it's just not as deep and rich on the nose. The Cellar's Aged smells a lot better. I'll give you that. Let's give it a sip. See, the BEP is a little more simplistic. It's not as complex on the palate. It's not as like oily and smooth on the mouthfeel. It doesn't bring the oak, but it's not world's worst. You know? Like, let's go back to the Cellar's Aged. The Cellar's Aged is clearly better, but the addition of a little bit of oak elevates the Cellar's Aged. But the Cellar Aged to me is like a really good wood finishing series, like best ever. And to me, that would command maybe 100 dull hairs, not 150. It doesn't, I'm sorry, I think it's actually not a great value for its price point. And I know, this is the first time Makers has done a 12-year bourbon bill. How could you say that? They didn't really give you a 12-year. They gave you a 6-year with an additional 6 years in a freezer. That's what they gave you. It's 12-year in technicality only, if you will. Look, the BEP is not as good. I'll admit that. The Cellar Aged is probably the best Makers they've ever done. I'll give you that. Just doesn't, I don't think it rises to the $150 hair price point. And secondary on these is like $450 to like $600. Get the fuck out of here. You know, like, it ain't near that level. I don't know that I even pay $150 for it, and that's MSRP. So if you have FOMO, I'm not sure that it's well earned, to be honest. Now we do have a couple comparisons for you tonight. First up, how about a Weller Foolproof Store Pick? Everyone knows store picks are better than those standard shelfers. MSRP on this is what, $60 hair, something in that range, maybe $70 for a store pick. 114 proof, compute 57% alcohol by volume. So close in proof. Put that in the blue for the blue label. Tim, thank you for this as well, sir. Besides supplying the sample, Tim also helped secure this store pick Weller for me as well. Thank you, Tim. Tell you, Massachusetts is just a lot better than PA. Let's give this one a whiff. Oh man, it's got that Buffalo Trace, like cherry vanilla scent. Very cherry heavy. Like peaches in here. Compared to the Cellar Aged, the Cellar Aged still has a better nose. I'll give it that. That little bit of oak that comes through does elevate it. It just does. Let's take a sip of the Weller Foolproof Store Pick. God, man, that store pick's good. Huge burst of fruit. Caramel, vanilla. It's very Buffalo Tracy, if you will. It's very cherry cola, peaches. Pretty viscous. I'd say this actually matches the viscosity of the Cellar Aged, but it does miss the oak. Cellar Aged for me does win, but it's only because of the inclusion of that little bit of extra oak. Those two are neck and neck on viscosity, neck and neck on fruit flavor delivery. Just the Weller Foolproof Store Pick is missing that little splash of oak that comes in there, okay? And that's the 6 years in the freezer. That's what that is. But it doesn't drink like a 12-year, really. I don't think. That's still my viewpoint. It doesn't really drink like a 12-year. How could we prove that? Let's compare it to a true Rickhouse aged 12-year. Okay, this is Jack Daniel's 12-year. I get this is harder to get, but MSRP on this, $80, $85. Almost half of the Makers Cellar Aged. This is hard to get. Secondary on this is like $250. Again, even on secondary, half of what the Cellar Aged is going for on secondary. Beautiful cork pop. We'll put this one in the black. Give the old JD12 a nosing. Oh my God. Oh, banana, caramel, char, and oak. Just a monster. A monster. Way more oak. Let's take a sip. Only con on the JD12. Now, the JD12 is 107 proof. Compute 53.5% alcohol by volume. It's a little thinner than the Cellar Aged, but it is better. Okay, it's got barrel char, it's got oak, it's got some fruit, it's got banana. It's better than the Cellar Aged, half price MSRP, half price secondary. What are you doing chasing Makers Cellar Aged? What are you doing? Okay? Why? The Makers Cellar Aged smells a little bit young compared to the JD12, and they're the same Well, roughly the same age. I know this is a blend of 11 and 12, but it smells a bit young. JD12 drinks its age because it's aged all those years in the rick house. It's not put in a cellar / refrigerator, freezer to halt aging so we don't get oak notes. Like, what are you doing, Makers? You know, this is the problem. Now you might say, okay, look, Bourbon Bill, I can't get Weller foolproof store picks. You know, I can't get JD12. I live in PA. It's too hard to get those kind of things. What can I get that might be close? How about a little Knob Creek 12 year, 100 proof? Sure, proof's less, but age, this is all 12 year in here, all right? All 12 year. MSRP on this in PA used to be like 60, now it's 72. But this is pretty available in my part of Pennsylvania. Almost any premium store you walk into has bottles of this lined up for 72. I've seen that it's available for less in other states. Somewhere down in the 60 range, like we used to be able to get this for. So here it is, a shelfer bottle. Okay, not an LE, but does carry a 12-year age statement. Is 100 proof, 50% alcohol by volume. How does that compare to the, oh my God, Makers Cellar Aged 11 and 12 year blend? Let's give the Knob Creek 12 a smell. Good Lord, it smells better. It smells better. Like F you, Makers, for not giving the people what they want. There's oak, there's char, there's caramel. There's like a little bit of an orange note on here even. Let's give it a sip. Look. Knob Creek 12, as does JD12, wrecks Makers Cellar Aged. It does. It does. It's way more oak, way more fruit, way more caramel. Knob Creek 12 is a little bit thinner, sure. It's not cask strength, but I would pick the Knob Creek 12 over the Makers Cellar Aged. Last sip of the Makers, I reduced my rating to a C+. That's what Makers Cellar Aged is, a C+. It's average at best. Is it the best Makers ever? Yes. Is it worth 150 doll hairs? Sorry to say it's not. Now yes, the JD12 and the Knob Creek 12 are not wheated bourbons, I get it. But they're better. And Knob Creek 12 is a shelf bottle. You don't even have to really like hunt super hard to get that. Okay? And it's better than the best thing Makers has ever done. What does that say about Makers? It says they're fucking off. You know, like they could have done better, and they fucked off. They didn't do what the bourbon drinkers wanted. They didn't provide 12 years in the rick house to bring the oak. The Makers Cellar Aged is very good. I would say it's worth about 80 to 100 a bottle. That's below MSRP, I get it, but that's where it plays. It really does. It should be a little bit more expensive than the wood finishing series. And that's it. You know, I'm glad you finally released an age-dated bourbon, but it's time to do that and age it fully in the rick house. Like, stop this nonsense of aging it in the cellar. There you go. So if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more. Have a good evening, everybody.